Welcome back to another episode of Terp Trends. Today, we're taking things a little deeper into the world where ancient wisdom meets modern cannabis. Our guest, Smrita Choubey, founder and CEO of Veda Warrior. Smrita started out on Wall Street working in healthcare investment banking, but she realized something big. The system wasn't really built for healing. So she turned back to her roots, 6 generations of Ayurvedic farming and medicine making in India, and she brought that knowledge forward in the modern cannabis space. Through Veda Warrior, Smrita is creating products that combine Ayurveda and cannabis in ways that feel natural, functional, and totally aligned with wellness. From infused oils to everyday plant-based remedies, she's helping people rethink how cannabis fits into their lifestyle, not just for recreation, but for true balance and health. We're going to get into her journey, the overlap of Ayurveda and cannabis, and what it means to reclaim plant medicine in today's world. This one's about legacy, culture, and a whole new vision of wellness. This is Terp Trends. Let's dive in.
Awesome. Well, of course. And thank you so much for having me, Adam. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and have a chat with you on Terp Trends. My name is Smrita Choubey. I'm the founder and CEO of Veda Warrior. We are a holistic wellness company that is focused on Ayurveda and exploring the ancient Ayurvedic heritage of cannabis. And for those who are not familiar, Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga. Yoga has 2 sister sciences, meditation and Ayurveda. As we know, yoga and meditation have gone fairly mainstream in our American society. And I really believe that Ayurveda is just the third leg of that. And what Ayurveda is it's an ancient system of holistic medicine that's actually personalized to the individual. So it uses a combo of herbs, diet, exercise, and then lifestyle choices to kind of create this personalized paths to wellness for each individual. And it's really mind, body, spirit. So there's a lot of this ethos of activating the inner warrior, which is not about violence in any way. It's actually about the optimal version of yourself, like the version of you that's pain-free, happy, joyful, going to work with a smile on your face because you actually like what you do, happy to come home because you like the people in your home, good friends, good family. It's a holistic view of what health is. And we're on this mission to explore the authentic Ayurvedic heritage of cannabis. Cannabis is something that Ayurveda has known about for more than 5,000 years. And that's what Veda Warrior is on a mission to do, just explore this ancient knowledge and make sure it has a place in our modern wellness routines.
Yeah, and it always has historically and biblically, and not just the Bible, but in other biblical texts. And that's something that you've dug into on your side. But before that, like you're diving in so deep into certain things that's, they definitely resonate close to you. But what sparked this? And how did you, because out of all the guests that I've talked to, none of them have dove into historical findings and seeking that out, which you, I'm guessing with your heritage and your family, which you briefly told me, like kind of encompassed all that. So were you always involved in cannabis, or did something pivot you towards the plant?
So no, I was not always involved in cannabis. Actually, I have a very mainstream background in finance. And to provide a little bit more background, I'm an Indian American Jersey girl, grew up in Jersey, was raised here my whole life. Pretty typical story of a New Jersey immigrant, girl growing up in the 90s and all that. So had a very typical like Indian American upbringing growing up in Central Jersey. And so I kind of had my foot in both worlds, culturally speaking. I was 100% American, born in America, like never lived in India, and yet had very Indian parents who are extremely rooted in their culture and their lineage. My family are Brahmins. So historically, Brahmins are a sect of Indians that have been devoted to the study and upkeep of our ancient wisdom. which is known as the Vedas. And we believe that these are scientific principles. We don't view it as a religion at all. We feel like it's metaphysics. And there's aspects of it related to architecture and medicine and dance and astrology and sacred geometry. And it really stems into every aspect of your life. And because there's such a scientific basis to it, it's interesting to learn about. Even if you're not from that culture or that religion. It's just interesting to say, like, what were these very methodical ancient people saying? Because they have been documenting this stuff for more than 5,000 years. So it's just from a world heritage perspective, I think it's something interesting to be curious about. So grew up in a household where I got, was raised with a lot of information on the Ayurvedic, yoga, meditation, all that good stuff. And my family owns farmland in North India, which is in the state of Bihar, and cannabis grows in the wild there. So I would hear mentions of it in various folk songs. So there's holidays related to Shiva where cannabis would be offered at the temples and baked into different foods or, blended into drinks. And you would hear these words in some of the folk songs. And so you're like, huh, okay. So I just had a different exposure to cannabis from a perspective of, oh, this is something that sometimes people do for religious purposes. And oh yeah, there's certain holidays where this is a drink that, my grandfather would talk about having and things like that. So there wasn't the stigma to it, but there was also like a careful use of it in terms of there are specific days and specific times that I heard about it being mentioned. Fast forward many years, mainstream American, I went to U Chicago for undergrad, studied econ, started my career in Wall Street, New York City. And that is actually where my turning point came from the cannabis thing, because I was a healthcare investment banker, and my job was raising money for hospitals and health systems. So my team kind of got to understand the economics of hospitals better than anyone else. And in that job, I actually started seeing cannabis coming up on some of our market updates. And,
Ooh,
I was a young girl in my early 20s, and I was like, why are they talking
interesting.
about weed in
Yeah.
this hedge fund market update that's going out to like the whole healthcare team at JP Morgan? So I was just shocked at first. I was like, this is weird. And then, but the more times I saw it, it just piqued my interest. I'm like, huh, if they're talking about this at all, and this is the most conservative environment on planet Earth, one of them, like everyone wears suits to work every day, like
Yep.
you had to
Yep.
go in with like heels on, makeup done, like every single day for
Oh
work,
yeah.
like
I know about it.
12, 14 hours a day. Like it was a very like uptight environment. And yet I saw this mention of cannabis. And so it piqued my interest. I was like, huh, I wonder why they're doing this. And then I realized, I'm like, oh, this is competition. This is competition for
Mm,
Xanax, Prozac,
mm.
Lexapro, Klonopin, Viagra, like Abilify, like blockbuster drugs. And so, this is almost 15 years ago at this point, but that's when I started asking these questions. And immediately, because of my background, the first question I asked is, what does Ayurveda know about cannabis? This is a native crop. I know it grows in the wild where my family's from. I know these people are rigorous documenters, writers, scientists, philosophers. And I've heard it. I've heard this name. The way you call it in Hindi is bhang, and the Sanskrit word for cannabis is called Vijaya, which actually
Yeah.
means she who is victorious. And
Ooh,
so I just love that. It just gives me
just
chills
got
every time I
chills.
say it.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
got yeah. Wow.
Exactly. But in everyday colloquial language, you would say bhang is the drink, or when it's baked into foods or anything like that. So I was like, I bet you the Indians know something about this. Then I started doing all the historical research. And what I started realizing is that there are extensive references to cannabis in Ayurveda.
Okay.
However, it was also and is to this day outlawed in India.
Yes.
And then the
Yes.
next question I asked is, how did this happen? What Indian person went to the parliament or the king or anyone, whoever happened to be in charge, and said, excuse me, I think, motion to outlaw cannabis because it's bad. I was like, how
Interesting.
did this happen? How did we go
Yeah.
from offering it to temples of Shiva and
In
still
scriptures.
doing that in
Yeah.
modern times to saying, okay, this is now banned? And so that's when I realized that this was a product of colonialism. The British Empire was ruling India for several hundred years,
Yep.
and in 1866 they banned Ayurveda. Again, Ayurveda was an ancient
Mm,
medical science that had been well established, well known, not only in India, but traded throughout the world. Like Hippocrates was inspired by Ayurveda. The four humors he talks about relate to the five elements Ayurveda talks about. Shipped all over the world. India's biggest export through the spice trade
interesting.
and the spice route were herbs and spices. We've been taught that since
Yeah.
elementary school. And so those herbs and spices included Ayurvedic medicine, medicinal plants. So the civilization was shipping it all over the world. British come in 1866, ban Ayurveda, colleges are shut down, burned down, people are fined, jailed, killed for practicing Ayurveda. In fact, one of the key tools of Ayurvedic diagnosis is they check your pulse, and they're trained. It's not a magical science. Like they're trained for decades and years and, perhaps lifetimes on how to read someone's pulse and diagnose them. And if you go to a true
Wow.
master, it's completely uncanny. They can check your pulse and be like, you probably fell down when you were 7 years old and you hit the left side of your head. And that created a blah, blah, blah imbalance that led
Yeah.
to XYZ and uncanny amounts of information. But again, it's not a magical science. It's a practice that's been practiced for thousands of years and taught in med schools. And so, one of the barbaric things that the British were going around doing was chopping off the thumbs
Oh,
of these practitioners, so then they would lose their ability to diagnose. So, there was this barbaric takedown of Ayurveda. They never tried to study it scientifically and disprove it. They were actually known and documented to have said in the House of Lords in the UK that if we truly want to break down the Indian subcontinent, the way to do that is to dismantle their ancient education system and make them believe that everything that is foreign is better than their own. So there's this active takedown of ancient Indian school systems, thought, and with that goes the medicine, the knowledge of the astrology, the true principles of yoga, which were not, it was not just an exercise. We're trying to create the optimal inner warrior, right? This
yeah,
mind body alignment
yeah,
that allows you to be a badass in every step that you take. Like these were practices that were known. It wasn't like some one person who came up with it. They tried and tested it again and again and again for thousands of years. This was like world heritage knowledge that really the whole globe had access to. It was being freely shared, traded. Actually, in my home state was this ancient university that was on par with like the University of Alexandria. It was then burnt down several hundred years ago, I think in the 1600s or something, in a war, as happened to a lot of the ancient centers of knowledge, unfortunately. But yeah, so I started realizing that this was a very, very dark history
yeah.
to the entire system of Ayurveda being attacked. Then in 1933, the British banned cannabis specifically. Didn't call out any other herbs. So this I also thought was like, huh, of all of the 700 herbs Ayurveda
Yeah.
talks about, the one they had to specifically outlaw was cannabis. And then coincidentally, the 1930s is also where we see the regulation of cannabis worldwide. So for me, I'm a student of economics, of business, of business strategy. And for me, I was like, whoa, like what socio-political forces are at play such that globally you see this turn away from cannabis. Globally, you see a turn away from natural medicines because every civilization has its own medicine. Like the Native Americans have their own
Mhm.
medicine, the South Americans have their own medicine. I just came back from an awesome trip to Africa. They have their own
Sick.
they have their own
Yeah.
medicine. Everyone has their own native herbs that they've been studying since the dawn of time. All of a sudden, we see this massive shift away from natural medicines. We see the rise of the new pharmaceutical companies, and we see the systematic takedown of the ancient wisdom. So that really got me fired up.
I'm fired up. So
Right?
what do you think, how did they center on this and how did they think it was such a threat? Because they have to feel intimidated or have some, um, they're scared of something and that's why they changed something, right? They got rid of it. They wanted their own to come in, their own ways, their own science. What what were they scared of? What are they scared of?
So my research, I was asking the same question. I was like, why? Why,
Yeah.
why, 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 why?
Yeah.
And so what I really found is like there's a couple of things. Number one, it's a psycho-spiritual plant, right? So if you really study the ancient knowledge and think of and dive into like what is it that's telling us about the cannabis plant, it's a psycho-spiritual plant. And by consuming it, you're kind of raising your vibration almost to like a higher level, spiritual, more spiritual
Oh yeah.
level. But at the same time, you're disconnecting yourself from the mundane aspects of the everyday life.
Yeah.
And so, if you are on a path of spiritual seeking and enlightenment and are dedicated time to just resting and enjoying yourself, enjoying nature, celebration, joy, things that help us spiritually, then you're probably not also doing your to-do list. And so if
Mm,
you think about it from a colonial mindset where they're coming in not saying how can I optimize these people, but rather how do I get as much work out of them as I can, then any psycho spiritual plant is like the opposite of what you want your workforce to be thinking about. So I really felt like there's these economic reasons why any force that's in power would want it outlawed. Is like if you don't want people spending too much time just thinking about the ethers and all that stuff, and we all know this, right? If you consume cannabis and then you have a massive to-do list, the odds of that
ah,
to-do list getting done are, it could be hit or miss. Or if you have to very efficiently knock a bunch of things out, like if you consume a whole lot of cannabis, is that going to help you become faster and more efficient? No, because that's not what it's for. And every plant has its benefits and there's times and places of using it. And if you're really thinking about optimizing your entire day, like there's specific points where it's a great time to consume cannabis and other times where yeah, you're probably slowing yourself down. But think about it from a perspective of rulers trying to rule an entire civilization. They're like, why would we give you that option? You need to
yeah.
be on all day.
Yeah.
You need to go to work, you need to like run our companies, you need to do all these things. So like no. So there's this psycho spiritual aspect of it, right? Of it keeps a workforce aligned. Number two, I think the well, this might even be tied for number one, which is the medical benefits of it.
Yeah.
So we found over 300 references to cannabis across a multitude of ancient and medieval texts, including specific formulations and ways that they were processing it and herbs that they were combining it with to treat specific ailments. Ayurveda references over 11,000 diseases, over
Wow.
2,000 different remedies. So it's a very, very extensive, encyclopedic amount of knowledge and, over 300 references to cannabis, many uses for specific ailments. So that's kind of the whole mission of Veda Warrior, is to bring that information to modern life and kind of adapt it to the modern American consumer. Because, if they give you a formulation that takes 3 months to make, and then you have to take a spoonful of herbs like twice a
Yeah.
day for six
Yeah.
weeks, you're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. It's
No,
too hard.
not
So we're
modern
like,
day.
okay, how do we concentrate it, put it into a gummy or
Nice.
a topical,
Yeah.
and make it easy and deliver the same knowledge, but put it into a modern format that it's actually accessible for people's everyday lives. Like, I'm a busy person. I know how much time and effort everyone's putting into their managing their careers, their families, being active members of their communities. So we have to create something that's adapted for the modern times. In the ancient times, they didn't have phones. They had less things distracting them. So it was fun to spend a month making your own medicine at home, but you and
Yeah.
I may not have the same amount of time.
No, about an hour, you know.
Yeah,
Now, now I
exactly.
have machines that do it all for me. So I'm not really, it's just all automated now because
Absolutely.
that's what I'm
Absolutely.
guilty. I mean, all us humans, I think we're very guilty of not slowing down anymore. And the Italians, they concentrate on that a lot. Slow down, take in the beauty of what you're doing. Don't rush. There's no point to do that. At least older Italians. And I'm trying to adapt that to just my mindset with certain things because you only live once. We only have X amount of time and we don't know when that's up. But yet we're so goal oriented and just driven to have that. It's such a collide, a yin and yang, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. La dolce vita. I think that is such a important concept.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right, so you're grinding, you're in the finance, which is a whole different beast, right? And now you're learning of this nuance and your gears are turning and now you're digging into the history of it. What was that like kind of digging into that cuz your family's part of that. They're kind of like the keepers of all of this knowledge. Did that feel cool to kind of get more into your roots? like family wise and culture wise, and break out of that finance world? Because it's a whole. You just did a 360.
I did. Yeah, I did a 360, and yet I feel like it's all tied into my overall the arc of my life because the skills and knowledge I learned in my finance career are so
Yeah.
critical to what I'm doing now, because if you don't understand the economics of why things are happening, then you will never be able to create effective change, in my personal opinion. And in my personal opinion, if you can follow the money, you can figure out pretty much why anything is happening in this age. It's just the way the system works. Like I
Yeah.
don't hate the player, hate the game, but I believe in being practical and just understanding how all that works. So, but family has been, very foundational part of this whole journey. There was a part of me that felt that my lineage specifically had more information to offer people. Like the whole
Wow.
point of our culture was to keep and share wisdom.
Yeah.
So teaching and helping people get access to wisdom that can help them optimize themselves was the whole mission of the entire lineage. My last name Chaubey means the four Vedas. This was a scholarly title that someone earned once upon a time. Not even in, we don't even remember who it was. It was probably in ancient times, but that's what my last name means. It's someone who like mastered the tests for all four Vedas. My mom's
Wow.
side, my mom's maiden name is Dubey. That means two of the Vedas. So also a scholarly title that one of our ancestors had earned for the study of these sciences. And once you study it, the point is to to teach it and to disseminate it. So I really felt like there was this like attack on knowledge. And Veda actually means science, or knowledge. And that's
Hmm.
why I named the company Veda Warrior. And we're not here to fight anyone. We're peaceful warriors, but we are here to stand for the knowledge that I believe is world heritage knowledge. I don't believe this just belongs to Indians. This information was freely traded all over the world in ancient times. And and a lot of archaeologists agree that the cannabis plant originated in the North India, Hindu Kush, Central Asia,
Yep. Yep.
Tibet, China region. And
Oh yeah.
then it got cultivated all over the world. Think about it. Most civilizations have some link to cannabis. We've found ancient Egyptian references to cannabis, Druid references to cannabis, Celtic references to cannabis. Definitely in South America, it was a known plant. In North America as well. So
Yeah.
this plant kind of spread all over the world. And if you follow the roots of where it's all coming from, it kind of all traces back to my region of India. And to this day, cannabis grows in the wild there. So I'm continuing to grow my knowledge of my family. I'm actually taking over the operations of my family land, which is really, really exciting. One of the reasons I love it is that cannabis grows in the wild there.
Yeah.
So I am
Wow.
so fascinated by just going back to the roots and studying the land races and, just sitting with some of the local indigenous elders and learning from them. I'm like, what do you know about this? And they have an astounding amount of knowledge. And that's why I take a very, progressive approach to who is like an expert.
Yeah.
And so I've built a science council at Veda Warrior, and I really believe in having the whole spectrum. We have everything from Ivy League educated scientists, PhDs, doctors, physicians, to the whole other end of the spectrum, which is like indigenous organic farmers who are living at the land, like sitting with these actual land races, because the Harvard scientists don't know about this. They might have a Harvard degree, but they don't
Yeah.
have the authentic knowledge of the cannabis plant from its native habitat. So we're doing the whole gamut. We're working with local farmers to understand more. And where I'm from, we're also growing 13 Ayurvedic herbs, like non-cannabis Ayurvedic herbs, on
Yeah.
my land. We just kicked off our R&D garden. So hopefully by 2026, some of the herbs for Veda Warrior gummies and topicals will be grown from my own family land. I'm just working through all the import export things, and as you know, India just got hit with some big tariffs, but
Ooh,
I think
yeah.
it's worth it because these are medicinal plants, right? So same thing with cannabis. There's terroir, there's genetics, like there's specific regions where these medicinal plants come from, and you can't just, grow it in Ohio. You can't do that. It's not going to be the same level of medicine. And my family land is very fertile and a native home to some epic botanical drugs, and that's what we're focusing on.
Whoa. That is well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you've made this pivot, because that is a lot and very beneficial, I think, to anybody that's able to consume your products. Because if you can pinpoint that and this stuff's coming from a single source, growing it in the history of where it belongs, I mean, that's like really powerful brand marketing. And it ties into the most important part of this plant, which is like the spirituality and the history that I think it brings. Like there's something about cannabis that no other plant has ever shown me, psychoactive, non-psychoactive, and there's a weird spiritual connection to it, and there wouldn't be if it wasn't written in every text that we know about historically in all different regions. And for some
Mhm.
reason, we don't want to grab it. So you're the first company that's really I've been able to dig into that you're like, you're over there, you're digging into scriptures, you're digging into ingredients, and now you have inherited your family's farm. How's that
That's
feel?
right. That's
How's that
right. Just
feel?
going full nerd. I've actually commissioned like almost 6, 7 years of research that I really feel that not many people are doing. And maybe I don't think anyone's doing it in America. And I think that the people even doing this kind of research in India are few and far between, very, very rare. And I didn't want to go to the scriptures and read someone's English translation of it. Like we went back and read the source texts in Sanskrit. I
Jeez.
had it translated it for myself. I don't speak Sanskrit, but I speak Hindi, and so I can understand like maybe
Yeah.
10, 15% of Sanskrit. And I can read it, but I don't necessarily know what everything means. So I've had it translated by my own team, and we're going like line by line. And it's fascinating. Like I live for this stuff. Like there's specific lines describing how it helps with women's health. For
Wow.
example,
Yeah.
and full disclaimer, I'm not claiming to diagnose anything or treat or cure anything. I'm sharing historical knowledge of what these ancient texts say. But for example, in modern times, it's a big mystery right now. Like, should you use cannabis while you're pregnant or not?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, I
where
love
does
this.
it come into women's health?
Yeah.
And I've heard every type of answer you can think of, and it's really hard as a woman to kind of like navigate all this because whatever you read, you're also going to find an article that says the opposite.
I
And it's
couldn't
going to be
yeah,
like, you're like,
couldn't
what do
imagine.
I do?
Yeah.
And so, in a situation like that, I love going to the ancient texts because I'm like, these people studied it for thousands of years and then they wrote it down and then they edited their texts over time and they would like recompile ancient texts every few hundred years. And like, so this was like time tested, right? Like, people were always questioning all the remedies. And then think about the data. We have so many people in India, also over so much time. So, what do the texts suggest about cannabis and women's health? Actually, it says that cannabis helps with conception. So if you are someone who's looking to conceive, it actually and it's used as an aphrodisiac.
Yep. Yep.
And so as an aphrodisiac and in conceiving from the conception point of view, it could be really good. They actually say to not consume it during your actual pregnancy because they say it increases the amount of heat in your body, which may not be good for the fetus. But
Oh.
I don't want to say everyone can make their own decision. I'm just sharing what it doesn't say it's prohibited and it'll kill your child, but it says it increases the amount of heat in your body, and then you take that for what it's worth. You can say,
Yeah.
all right, I can consume it moderately, or I'm just gonna, be safe and not consume it at all, whatever. But then it comes back into play for postpartum,
Cool.
especially for topical uses. So
Wow.
postpartum recovery after you deliver your baby,
Yeah.
also for muscle pain and just massage and getting it back in, and then after that, and they while breastfeeding they say that it's not technically recommended, but you can start consuming again after your breastfeeding era is done. But
Yeah.
then it also helps with period cramps, and there's
Yep.
specific formulations that are for menstrual cramps. And actually, we have a menstrual cramps gummy that we're going to be launching this fall. And
Nice.
it's exactly inspired by the herbs that we found in these texts. And then, again, I don't think that anyone's going to have like a whole bunch of powders and whatever for like a 6 week period of time. So we just made organic, water based plant extracts of it, similarly to how you would make a cannabis extract, but this is a water based extract, and we concentrated down to a gummy, and so we managed the dosing as such. But that's an example of the type of really cool information that's just waiting there to be found. Lots of other information on aphrodisiacs, like just describing a lot of the everyday symptoms of cannabis use that you would describe, like things like munchies, talking a lot, laughing a lot. Like they have a methodical way of analyzing this stuff. Also, digestion. We munchies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Munchies are not necessarily bad. What if you have some sort of a disease where you can't eat? You have no
Yep.
appetite.
Correct.
Then it's a medicine. So in that context, they would blend it with other digestive herbs to actually create a medicine that would help you get your appetite back. So think of the
Wow.
application of knowledge like this to the cancer world, where like I know one of the big side effects of chemo is people lose their appetite and lose tons
Oh
and tons
yeah.
of weight. So the applications of this ancient wisdom to modern life is so tremendous. It can basically, I know why I know why it serves big pharma to continue investing in lobbies that keep cannabis at least highly regulated. And it's because it would create a
Oh.
tremendous
Oh.
competitive threat to them.
It would shatter their sky.
Yeah,
Because right now the sky's the limit for them, and now they
right.
finally have something that's putting a boundary on that. And I
Hmm.
think in maybe like 10 more years, we'll have more freedom on knowledge of the pharmaceutical mishaps that happen in not just this country, other countries, I'm sure, and the troubles that follow that. But on the positive side, I will always say pharmacology will always have a role in society, and it's important to have these medicines, of course.
100%.
But we need the roots. We need where all of this was built off of, and that's off of nature. Um, Everything that you can get in a pill is derived from nature in some way. Like you have scriptures that, you listed maybe a handful of medications earlier, and it was all going against one plant, cannabis. So it's wild that even back then they faced the same type of discrimination on cannabis. But I'm curious, because modern day we have way too many methods of consumption, which I think is great. We cater to any type of audience for cannabis, any type of user can use it. What did you find mostly in the text how they were consuming? Was it more eating and cooking with it? Were they smoking it? Like, what was their main method, I guess? 'Cause it's more
Yeah.
spiritual, not recreational. So,
This episode is brought to you by Waddle, the world's fastest and easiest way to review and track your medicinal cannabis products. Waddle offers batch-specific reviews, so you'll know what to stash or what to trash. It's exclusively available for Pennsylvania medical cannabis patients. Waddle helps you take the guesswork out of your cannabis journey and ensures transparency with the verified product tracking. Download Waddle now on iOS or Android. That's WODL, and take control of your cannabis experience today.
Totally. So I wanted to create, I wanted to launch our product line with what I felt was the most authentic to the overall mission.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so what I saw, and a use of cannabis that's actually still alive today and is acceptable, on certain days, is the cooking with cannabis,
yep,
baked into sweets. It's usually sweets or made into drinks. And so I thought that that was kind of like the foundational way to come to market with all the information we found. So our first three products that we've launched is a cannabis infused ghee butter, an olive oil, and a coconut oil. And the coconut oil and the ghee butter are, fairly traditional ways of consuming it. And then we wanted to add the olive oil as well because just to cater to the
yeah,
Western palate and give you that much, more freedom with how you're cooking with it. So using and this really ties back to one of the foundational principles of Ayurveda, which is that food is part of your medicine. There's
yep,
four generalized categories of what is medicine in Ayurveda: food, herbs, exercise, and lifestyle. And lifestyle includes, it's a catch-all thing, that meditation, friends, family, blah 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 blah. And I think that's really important to highlight this food as medicine thing. So right now we're really focused on educating people on how you can make everyday meals into healing specific things that you're interested in. So for example, if pain is an issue for you, then you can eat specific anti-inflammatory ingredients and add one of our cannabis infused oils to that. So I think what we're seeing a lot is there's net new users to the cannabis industry that really work well with this, because what if you're someone who doesn't want to smoke? but you
Yep.
do want to consume cannabis, then this is easy. It's easy as adding a dropper full of olive oil onto your pizza or into your soup or onto your whatever meal you're eating, or baking in the ghee butter. Our coconut oil can also be used topically. It's pretty much the cleanest topical on the market. You can literally eat it. Coconut oil has been used for Ayurvedic massage for thousands of years. So that coconut oil itself has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. So that goes into like muscle pain relief, things like that. And then thereafter, we saw many different uses. And so what we found was that a lot of the medicinal quality compounds were known to be in the leaves, which I
Okay.
think it's so funny because today we only care about
Just the
flower.
buds. Yeah.
Yeah, but back then they when making medicine, like say you were formulating cannabis for like a specific medical use, not a recreational use. They would be way more focused on the leaves than the flower because of the
Interesting.
concentration of the compounds. They also had very specific ways of processing the leaves and the flower in order to put them into the formulations. And there is also a practice of medicinal smokes, and this includes herbs beyond cannabis as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So different things that, a doctor would like roll for you, and you do it for different things to clear out your lungs, or, clear out different energy chakras and your aura and things like that. So there is a known practice in Ayurveda of medicinal smokes also.
I
And
need
then
to.
hash, and the hand, like the
Oh
hash,
yeah.
the charas, and that's very, very typical to our culture. It comes from the Himalayas, which is just north of where my family is from. So, Malana cream. Malana is a place in the foothills of the Himalayas. They've been growing cannabis there for thousands of years. Literally, it's like a family trade. And it was one of those things that because of colonial British rule, they came and shut them all down and kind of robbed them of their livelihood that had been. They were literally world class hash makers. They were
Yeah.
shipping that stuff all over the world in the ancient times. There were, metric tons of hash getting shipped out of the Himalayas, for thousands of years. All of that came to a screeching halt. They were also using a lot of hemp fiber for fabrics and things like that. So
Yeah.
that's another potential reason to that, the powers that be may not want cannabis, of course, because that's another bunch of industries it challenges the cotton industry, challenges the paper industry because of hemp paper.
Yeah.
We know that Henry Ford built a hemp version of the car, so
Yep.
challenges the metals manufacturers. So think about, this is what fascinates me the most. One plant has the power to take down so many different industries. So you can imagine a world where a lot of people would collude to say, no, this plant has got to go. Because if people are cultivating cannabis and using it, many different people are not going to make any money.
Yeah. No, I mean it's true, and not to dig into the conspiracies or the dirty past, but if you get into all the reefer madness and the war on drugs and how all that started, like the plagiarism and everything that was put out, propaganda that was put out around cannabis, and then when you dig into the history of it, like everything you just talked about, it just puts question marks everywhere, everywhere. And we won't dig into that because we're staying positive right now, and I like the vibe that we're on.
Yeah.
Um, so wow, how often are you able to? When are you going back to India? Do you have any plans to go visit your family farm soon? Because you're doing all this stuff in Jersey, and we're about to dig into that a lot. But I would never leave. I would like I'm not a historian, but like
Yeah.
I'm a nerd when it comes to cannabis. So when I hear stuff like this and now you have access to like hidden just scriptures, like the visuals that I have in my head are so cool of like you going through this experience where I'm like, how do I like can I come to this farm for like a month? Like what's that? How do we get that has to be so sick.
Yeah, so I just went to India a few months ago in March, and I'll go again in the fall. And yeah, so I'm aiming to go once or twice a year. We
Yeah,
do have local family there that runs the whole thing. We have 13
so cool.
farmers that are already running the farm. It's been a grain farm for almost 200 years. And so this is just a fun, yeah, yeah. So they grow excellent weather there, so they have no winter.
Yeah.
So you get two entire crops per year. I would actually love to go and grow industrial hemp there one day. It would be the ideal property
Yep.
for industrial hemp because it's flat, so you can
Yeah.
run big equipment there. And then cannabis is a native crop, so we know it's going to do really well. And you can get two entire harvests per year because there's no winter. and it's already irrigated by these very very old water canal systems that have been there for over 100 years, which are currently used to flood the fields
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
time for the rice. And then by the time the rice is ready to harvest, the water has all been evaporated. Then they put in a crop of wheat. And then once the wheat is harvested, they flood it, they plant the rice, so on and so forth. So there's excellent irrigation there as well. So yeah, but my goal will be to go once or twice a year. We have a local team that's managing the day to day, and I feel that my part of the mission is best served being here
Yeah.
and kind of helping us get the like, because it's the so what of it, right? Like, so what that I did all this work, so what we did all this research. The whole point of it is to help the everyday American manage their everyday wellness, right? Like the numbers really show that a vast number of Americans are taking many, many different prescription drugs.
Yeah.
And this doesn't necessarily help everyone. Some people end up with a lot of different side effects. For
Yeah.
example, when I first launched Veda Warrior, we had a CBD supplement, which is very similar to our mental balance gummy that's about to launch, except that was hemp and this is cannabis.
Yeah.
And I started learning is that 77% of our customers were trying to get off of prescription drugs. They were citing using things like Xanax, Prozac, Lexapro, Klonopin, and most of them had been already taking it for 3 to 7 years.
Yep.
So nobody was saying, "Oh, should I take herbs or should I take prescription drugs?" It was mostly people who were already taking the prescriptions. But the same story was there across the board, which is the side effects.
Yeah.
Some people were like, "Oh, I've gained like 50 pounds during this time," like, and that really wasn't my body type before. Other people are like, "I feel foggy all the time. I have brain fog. I'm having a hard time keeping my job, or I got fired from my job." Like, digestion problems that come up. There's so many different side effects. So we realize that there's a segment of Americans who are suffering from side effects from prescription drugs where there is an alternative, a holistic alternative. And so I believe in modern medicine very, very, very much. I'm not one of those people who is like, I hate science, I hate everything modern.
Yeah.
In
Same.
fact, I love science and technology. Like, I'm
Yep.
building my own, we have our own AI wellness concierge. You can
Sick.
play around with it now at vedawarrior.com. Just go under our science tab and it says AI wellness coach. I've trained it with a whole bunch of things, and we're only going to keep moving forward with that. Again, just to make Ayurveda accessible to people. Right
Yeah.
now, if you're a newbie and you're like, oh, okay, I heard Smrita on this podcast on Terp Trends. I want to know more. What can Ayurveda do for me? Normally, you would have to go pay like $800
Yep.
to a practitioner to spend, 3 hours with you, and you may or may not understand anything. So that's a humongous barrier to entry. And
Huge.
so we were like, how do we make this more accessible? Because if I didn't know anything about something brand new, I'm not dropping $800 on that,
No.
because no way. Like, why would I do that? So we're like, how can we launch a free chatbot such that people can educate themselves on all the basics, actually interact with it? You don't want to pay $800 and then go ask someone, oh, can you tell me what Ayurveda is? Like, there should be a free way to like help you understand that information. So we're going to continue building that. I very much believe in using the best of modern technology to optimize all of our formulas, because why not? And also, I really believe that the whole reason that Ayurveda still exists is that every generation modernizes it and adapts it to the current times. That's why it's
Mm.
timeless. If this is not about worshiping the way ancient people did things. It's about saying, okay, this is an ancient set of knowledge. Imagine you found a science notebook or a lab notebook that was thousands of years old. It's not about saying, okay, like, I'm going to worship these lab people now. It's about saying, oh, let me take their work
Yep.
and let me,
Build onto it.
do the next big thing with it.
Yep.
And this Ayurveda relies on this, because science must always be questioned. It's not about worshiping everything they were doing in the past. It's about validating it with the rigor of the modern scientific process, and also so that we know, right? Like, why should we take anyone's word for anything? Honestly, I believe in questioning literally everything and then finding my own answers.
Yep. Yeah. I'm very guilty of that.
Yeah.
Not really believing anything. But then when you dig into it, it's very gratifying, especially stuff like this. And I
Hmm.
feel more connected hearing your story, because I always thought there's more to it. We need more spiritual adaptation into our lives, especially where we are, like Pennsylvania, New Jersey style. Um, we're so quick and judgmental and things like that. And it's not just these two states, it's a lot of our culture. And we don't, kind of what I said earlier, we don't slow down. And we don't really have any spiritual ties as a whole. We have sub communities that are very spiritual and they want to learn more about it. But as a whole, like, we don't seek that out. And I think our society is realizing that, and we're shifting more towards it, because in the past, like, 5 years, there's been a bigger bloom in wellness, functionality medicine, spiritual ties, and stuff like that, which I think we kind of got rid of, and we're learning we need that back. Like, it's so important, and it's really great to have someone like yourself who sees that and then wants to bring that, because we only want X amount of clicks and we don't want to spend time learning. And that's where we're ignorant. We want to go to our doctor. They gave us this, they signed it, we trust them, we take it. And then we deal with it and we go back to them, they sign it, we trust it, we take it. And like you said, there's all these side effects that are happening mainstream. Everyone's going through it. There's so many people on SSRIs in our culture. It's insane, especially when you get into the opiates. It's kind of wild. But it's because we're missing something that I think a lot of people are waking up on. So taking this mission, finding the products, R&Ding it, how does it feel to find a partner and then get it rocking and rolling? And now you're like out in the public. Like, now you finally have a product. You don't just have knowledge, you have something you can put in someone's hands, which as humans we need to then open up our curiosity. How has that been? Because now you're doing testings. I saw you had a tasting this weekend. So you're out at
Yes.
you're out at stores with your product. You're teaching people publicly yourself, and that has to be what you're looking for. That receiving that energy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And getting to this point took a very, very long time and a lot of struggle and a lot of setbacks. And
Oh
I
yeah,
really feel like looking back, it was like a great initiation to like prove that I wanted it badly enough to
this
keep
industry is
persevering.
crazy. There's no
This
other
industry is
industry
so
like
crazy.
cannabis. Like, it's one
Yeah.
thing starting a brand, it's another thing trying to start a cannabis brand. And
Oh,
unless
yeah.
you're in it, like, you don't understand that difference. So
Yes.
now you're fully in it, and you're
Yeah.
successful. You're rolling with it. How's it going?
It's going great. And as you said, I think the most exciting part is that we actually get to be out there,
Yes.
having events, experiences. And, I never wanted to teach this wisdom just like, doing lectures and things like that. I'm like, this has to be experienced. Imagine if someone just gave you a book on what it feels like to consume cannabis. Like,
Yeah.
that's not going to do anything for you. We have to sit down
You
and
gotta
do
do
the
it.
thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so we feel our experiences and our tastings are such a pivotal way that we're trying to experientially teach people. For example, someone I was doing a pop-up in a dispensary and someone came up and asked me like, which of your products is good for sleep? And rather than telling them about a specific product, I said, well, we're an Ayurveda company, and in Ayurveda, a classical sleep remedy is the golden turmeric latte, where you
Nice.
mix turmeric and a bit of ashwagandha, a little bit of black pepper into warm milk,
Yeah.
and then you have it at night. And this is a natural sleep aid. So I said, so I would recommend that you make this natural remedy and use our ghee butter, which will kind of supercharge it for you. And so then I walked them through the dosing process of, 1 teaspoon is 5 milligrams of THC, 2 teaspoons is 10 milligrams. And I got to walk them through not really actually how to consume cannabis, but rather how to use Ayurveda to heal their wellness need, which is that this person wanted to sleep better and stay asleep longer. And so that's fun for me because I feel like, it's kind of also just it's fun for me because in one of the challenges of the cannabis industry is that you're not allowed to use any normal marketing tools.
Yep.
You can't use Facebook ads. You can't, there's so many things you can't do. Your hands are just tied
Guerrilla
in pretty much
marketing.
every way. And so
Yeah.
it's almost this way of like outsmarting this like oppressive system and saying, all right, we're going to figure this out. I don't care what regulations they put on us. Like, we will bend over backwards. We will be like water, but we're going to find a way to get our wisdom out there.
Yeah.
And so this is an example of how we're doing, something that's, if I were a non-cannabis company, I'm sure a lot of them wouldn't do something like this. They would be focused on ads and just like scaling fast and things like that. And I'm actually grateful for the fact that I can't really run my business that way because there's so many regulatory restrictions and scaling is so tough. into multiple states. We're actually working on some opportunities to launch in New York soon, and it's
Sweet.
a completely separate supply chain. It sucks. I was
Yeah.
like, if in any other industry, I would have one lab, and that lab would could ship up to globally. And now I have to
Yeah.
have 50 different labs if I want to be in 50 states. Like that's
Uh,
insane. And
yep.
the operational just cost of that is just tremendous.
Wild.
So
Oh
the
yeah.
experiential things, I just love doing it. And I just feel that I always set the intention that whoever is meant to be here, I hope they find this event. And we're trying to keep it focused around our ailments. So we feel that pain, sleep, sexual vitality, mental health, and then focus and creativity are like some of the top use cases that we found in the ancient texts. So we just want to help people with the whole gamut of Ayurvedic tools and all of these things. So over the coming years, you'll see we're working on producing a whole bunch of content that's going to be coming out over the next year.
Sick.
Just like bite-sized clips helping, just educate on what Ayurveda is and how you, and practical tips for using it. We want to talk about all sorts of things that help with your sleep. We're not just here to tell you about your, what product you can take. We want to talk about sleep habits. We want to talk about how to feng shui your bedroom. We want to talk about, all the different things that go into sleep, menstrual cramps, all of those things, right? And so that, I think, is the exciting part, is now we get to do the talks and the teaching and engaging with people. And I always love hearing people's questions, and regardless of where they are, even there, some people are even very against this. I still enjoy those conversations because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, tell me
Same.
more. Like, where, how come you think that, this is a drug and is bad? Or how would you view this as a different type of drug than a Xanax or an Ambien? So it's all about that dialogue, generating that dialogue and having these conversations, because that's what we couldn't do under prohibition, right? You couldn't have these open dialogues. You couldn't just have, yeah, we could do podcasts and things like that, but there was so much stigma around it that
Yeah.
the everyday American wasn't getting access to this information and wasn't given the knowledge that this could be an alternative way to manage your wellness compared to prescription drugs. And so for us, it's really about health freedom. I'm not against modern medicine whatsoever, but I believe that that we as human beings have the right to access to all the information. We do not think it's fair at all that lobbyists and things like that can just squash the information on the holistic alternatives and
Yep.
only give us information on the prescription drugs. I think that's not okay. Like, and I think that's like a huge part of what we stand for and what we're going to continue fighting for.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's so needed. Again, myself, not against modern medicine in any way, but I think we should be allowed to play at the same reins that they are.
Hmm.
And having our hands tied and posts taken down and accounts taken down just for posting about a plan
Yeah.
blows my mind. When there's crazy stuff on these apps that you see where I'm just like, whoa, dude, why is this even here? This is uncomfortable for me. I'd rather see cannabis.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think in 10 years, like, look at alcohol and how long that took. Like right now, we're starting this now. Like you and I, we're pioneers right now. We're rebels, we're leading the cause. Everyone that's a leader in this, like, you're kind of rebellious. You're rebels. Like you're standing up to what you feel is more important, not just for yourself, but for your fellow humans. We all want to live on this world collectively, healthy, high, happy, humble is what I like to say. And we should be allowed to do that. And there's texts and there's just past that, like, they document it, they prove it. Why can't we have that? So rock on, man.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we all got to keep fighting the good fight.
What's on the horizon for you guys? You have obviously you're doing pop-ups. You're based in Jersey, so this is for the Jersey market, recreational, and are you in the medical stores too?
Yes, both
Yep,
recreational and medical. So yeah, we have an
recreational and
exciting fall planned. We are working hard right now on the launch of our gummies, which I'm so excited about. We have 5 SKUs of gummies coming out. We have a gummy for joint care, so for people experiencing symptoms of arthritis, menstrual cramp pain relief. We just talked about that and how
yeah,
we found some
awesome.
herbs that pair really well with cannabis. That's a microdosed gummy. We have a sleep gummy coming out. We have a mental health, and then your daily creativity and inspiration, like your daytime gummy. with a bunch of different nootropic herbs. So I'm really, really excited about those. I'm building the whole supply chain. As you know, it's a weird environment because with all these international tariffs and everything. So I'm trying to get my supply chain in good control. I actually source every single herb myself. And
Nice.
we source the herbs in raw format. So it's like the roots of the ashwagandha or the leaves of the bacopa or whatever it is, the right plant part. Those herbs are then shipped to our US lab in Florida, where we make our plant extracts. And then finally, it's in South Jersey is where the product is packaged and finalized. So
Nice.
I have a very tight control over my supply chain. Like I know where things are coming from, and it's
You
important to
have
me.
to.
It's important to me to do all the research. I actually like the most fun part of my job. It was sourcing our olive oil because I was like, I really want the world's best olive oil. Like, so
Olive
I
oil's
like
hard.
you know the my yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
I was like, my
real
science
natural
council is
olive
helping
oil.
me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm so proud of our olive oil. It's from a family-owned Greek estate, USDA certified organic, extra virgin, cold pressed. But importantly, it's only one strain of olive, which is rare. Like
I
because
was about to
usually
ask
they're
you that. Is
mixing
it
together a bunch of
single?
them.
Yep. Okay. So my next question, you beat me to it.
Yeah. And because, our olive oil is one of the most adulterated common products. Like there's a lot of people adding like different types of oil to make it
Oh
cheaper
yeah.
and things like that. So this one is a mono varietal of the Koroneki olives and a Greek Koroneki olive. And we specifically chose that because it's supposed to be one of the highest in polyphenols, which are very good for heart health. And
Nice.
so we're like, okay, even if we're going to create an olive oil product, we have to make sure that the ingredients are of the highest quality. Our ghee butter is organic as well. Coconut oil is organic. So, and then as I was mentioning earlier, each of the herbs that we use, there's 42 overall herbs that go across all of our formulations. Each of them comes from a specific region where the terroir is well suited to that plant, where there's cultivation actually happening. Some of our herbs are beyond organic. They're actually wildcrafted in specific, like protected agroforestry areas where they're actually
Whoa.
picked in wild areas. Yeah. And then the locals tend to it as well. They make sure it doesn't get endangered and stuff. But yeah, they're actually like picked from a forest. um, so that's our mission, right? We're here to set the gold standard. I wanted to be a true medicinal company. I want our customers to be able to trust that we're never going to cut corners on ingredients, and we're probably not going to be the cheapest product on the shelf. My aim is not to be a luxury brand either. We just have to cover our costs and everything like
Yeah.
that. The goal is to be an accessible brand. I really believe that this is for everyone who has any of these ailments. It's not like, oh, fancy people only. Like it's not for any demographic. It's like if you have period cramps, like, we want to talk to you. But we want to be known as an accessible brand, but that we don't cut corners. We're not using like corn syrup in our ingredient in our products. We're not using like artificial flavorings where it's not going to be neon orange, right? Like they're
Yeah.
going to be like a weird color. And I'm very, very set on not using any artificial colorings because I'm like, you're not taking this for candy. If you want candy, go have some lifesavers or some
Yep.
gummy bears or something else. Like if your joints hurt, then our joint comfort gummies are better for you. And I think that our customers actually like that. The people who are in our community, they're like, thanks. I don't care what color this gummy is. I don't need it to be neon green
Yeah.
if it's going to be at the expense of my health. Like
Yep.
I don't need to do that. Like, well, what's the benefit? And so we're seeing this trend of consumers kind of having this awakening of being like, why am I doing this? Like, do I actually care that this gummy is this like really beautiful color, or do I just want to like experience its benefits? So there's a whole revolution happening, and I believe that this is one of the beauties of American capitalism. The consumer speaks. So as the
Yes.
consumers, as we change our mindsets and decide, hey, I'm not going to spend my money on this crappy stuff anymore. I'm going to spend it where, on things that I value. We're going to see even greater and greater amounts of shift. So I think the onus is on companies like myself to make sure that we're not trying to price gouge the people who are just seeking a wellness alternative, right? So like that's never the intention. But yeah, at the same time, like it's tough to compete with some of the of the big corporate brands who, just are operating at prices that we just couldn't sustain. But yeah, I think the use case is different. If you don't really have a particular wellness need, then maybe the Veda Warrior gummies aren't necessarily the first thing that you should be going for. But if you want a healthy product with genuine, authentic ingredients, and it's for an ailment that is a topic of concern for you, then I think that we are that brand.
Yeah, and I think just excluding the gummies, having the ghee, the olive oil, the coconut oil for people to use how they need. Like for my listeners that don't really understand this, you now have a product that you can kind of adapt into anything, especially with the coconut oil. You can add that to drinks and it's not going to add kind of that oily texture that an olive oil would. And I've seen you like, it's definitely great. Take that olive oil, put it on your salad, mix that with your balsamic oil. Do something like that. Take that coconut oil, mix it with your favorite dessert. Use the ghee, adapt that to your, cook some eggs with it in the morning. However you need it, you're really focusing on and pinpointing like ways to use this functional medicine throughout their whole day and adapt it. Because not everybody wants to smoke. I don't even really, at this point, I don't really enjoy smoking. Like I love hash, but I'd rather eat a gummy or I'd rather consume it in a way where it's like a vitamin in the morning. I take it, my 5 milligrams. I have THC, THCV, CBGs. I take them all, and it's with my vitamins. And I go out without my day. But that'd be cool to then, break out my lunch, break out your olive oil, toss it with my salad, and my apples. Whoa, right there, you just got a quick 5 milligram dose that your body might need to kind of get you throughout that. But you don't smell like cannabis. You're not burning a joint, but you're still consuming. So I think it's a great product line. I think more people should look into it. Definitely try it. You're in a good supply of stores in New Jersey, so I'll tag your website. They can find your products there, and stay in touch with your journey. And what you're doing is very important. And I'm very appreciative of you taking time to teach us more about this. Because
Yes,
knowledge is
thank you so
power.
much for having me, Adam.
That's it. That's how we change these consumers is we give them more knowledge. In fact, we just don't have enough people that have the platforms to do it, but we're getting them out there. How can people stay in touch with you? How can they keep up with the story, events going on in Jersey, coming to New York, obviously? Tag any social medias or websites or anything like that.
Sure. So you can find more information about us at vedawarrior.com. You'll be able to see all of our products, our upcoming events, and we're in about 80 stores in New Jersey now. So if you look at our store locator, you can see where to find us. And then fingers crossed, we'll be coming soon to New York as well. And yeah, would love to stay in touch with your community and have you all to any of our upcoming events. We have a tasting this weekend. We have at Sunny Tien Dispensary. We have a yoga class at the end of the month at Bazooka
Nice.
Dispensary in Elizabeth. And we're always adding new cool things to our lineup. So best way to stay in touch is vedawarrior.com. And then please follow us on Instagram at Veda Warrior. And if you want to follow along with the story of the farm as well, it's at Veda Farms. And yeah, would love to stay in touch with you. And Adam, we're going to make this India trip happen one day.
Oh, don't don't tell me that. I'll hold you to it. I'm a person you don't want to tell things because they hold you to it.
We're going to
Um,
do a field trip. It'll
but
start at my
yeah.
family farm. It'll go up into the mountains and
Oh
everything
my
in
gosh.
between.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I'm a hemp cannabis consultant, so if you were serious about industrialized hemp, we could kind of navigate that for you as well. So,
I love
wow.
that. I love that.
Thank you.
Well, yes, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure to chat with you, and I really appreciate your community taking the time to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to run into you in Jersey. And until then, stay moving, stay grooving, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. See you soon.
All right.